She was hailed a hero, a mother who fought off intruders during a violent home invasion, shielding her children and surviving the unthinkable. But as police dug deeper, the truth unraveled. The break-in wasn't random, and the real mastermind was the woman everyone thought was the victim. This isn't just a story about murder, it's a story about secrets, desperation, and how far someone will go to escape a life they can no longer endure. On a cold February night in the peaceful suburb of Pinebrook, Oregon, a horrifying 911 call shook the town awake. It was close to midnight when the dispatcher heard a woman's voice, frantic, crying, breathless. She was begging for help, claiming that masked intruders had broken into her home. The woman on the phone identified herself as Emily Carson, a mother of 3. She said her husband had been shot, that she and her children had narrowly escaped with their lives. First responders rushed to the scene, a 2-story blue-gray house tucked in a quiet cul-de-sac. The front door was ajar. Inside, chaos awaited. Furniture was overturned, a lamp shattered on the ground, and muddy footprints streaked across the living room floor. Upstairs, police discovered the lifeless body of Mark Carson, Emily's husband. With a gunshot wound to the chest, it was already cold. Emily was sitting on the floor, her arms wrapped tightly around her youngest child, while the other 2 huddled silently beside her. Her face was pale and streaked with tears. A cut ran across her cheek, and her wrists were bruised. She told officers she had fought back, doing everything she could to protect her children. The media wasted no time. Emily's story spread quickly. A mother who had endured a brutal attack and lived to tell the tale. News outlets called her brave. Communities rallied behind her. Local churches held prayer vigils. Friends brought flowers and meals. Donations poured in from strangers. For many, she was the embodiment of strength and maternal instinct. But something about the scene raised quiet concerns among investigators. There were inconsistencies, things too subtle for the public to notice, but glaring to trained eyes. The front door didn't appear to have been forced open. The broken window in the living room had no glass outside. All the shards had fallen inward, as if someone had broken it from inside the house. There was no sign of stolen electronics, no missing cash, no obvious motive for a break-in. Detectives kept their thoughts to themselves, at least for now. While the town embraced Emily, law enforcement began to peel back the layers of her story. Detectives began their investigation. They turned their attention to the couple's history. On the surface, the Carsons seemed like any other family in the neighborhood. Emily was a stay-at-home mother, quiet and well-liked, often seen walking her youngest to preschool or volunteering at the community center. Mark ran a small home remodeling business. He was known for being blunt and short-tempered, but not dangerous, at least, not in public. Privately, though, it was a different story. Police obtained past domestic disturbance records. One stood out. 6 years earlier, Emily had filed a report claiming Mark had shoved her during an argument. No charges were filed. Emily later withdrew the complaint. Still, it painted a different picture than the one seen on television. They interviewed neighbors and close friends. Many admitted they had heard shouting from the house on several occasions. One said she once saw Emily with a black eye. Another mentioned that Emily seemed nervous and not quite herself in the weeks leading up to the incident. Even claimed Emily had confided that she feared Mark, but didn't know how to leave him without losing her children. Financial records added more context. The couple was drowning in debt. Bank accounts were nearly empty. Mark's business was failing. There were eviction notices, overdue credit cards, and maxed-out loans. But most significant of all was the life insurance policy. Mark had taken out a policy worth $500,000 just 2 years earlier. Emily was the sole beneficiary. Detectives found this too much to ignore. The autopsy results confirmed that Mark had been shot at close range, and only once. No struggle marks, no defensive wounds, and the bullet was fired from a 9mm handgun, a weapon that wasn't found at the scene. Still, there was no clear evidence pointing at Emily. No weapon, no witnesses, and no motive that could be proven yet. But a break in the case came from an unexpected place, a local pawn shop, just as the investigation was beginning to stall. A tip came in that shifted the entire direction of the case. 2 days after the murder, a pawn shop owner in a nearby town contacted police. A young man had come into his store trying to sell a watch, a luxury brand worth nearly $2,000. The man seemed nervous, kept looking over his shoulder, and insisted on cash. The shop owner grew suspicious and wrote down the serial number of the watch before turning the man away. When he later saw a news segment about the Carson murder, he recognized the man's face. A photo of Mark Carson wearing the exact same model had aired. The owner called it in. Police tracked down the man using surveillance footage and facial recognition. His name was Jordan Tate, a 23-year-old with a history of petty crime and drug possession. He was picked up a few days later and brought in. For questioning at first, Jordan denied everything. He claimed he'd found the watch on the sidewalk, that he didn't know anything about the murder. But as the detectives applied pressure and showed him evidence, including his phone records placing him near the Carson house the night of the murder, his story cracked. Jordan confessed. But what he revealed wasn't what anyone expected. Said Emily Carson had hired him. According to Jordan, he didn't break into the house on his own. Emily had contacted him through a mutual acquaintance, someone who knew Jordan was struggling with money. She offered him $20,000 to stage a fake home invasion. The goal was to scare Mark, to make him think they were being robbed, shake him up, and make him vulnerable. That's what Emily allegedly said. She gave Jordan a key to the back door. She told him what time Mark usually went to bed. She even described the layout of the house. She wanted it to look real. Jordan claimed, so real that no one would ever suspect her. But it didn't go according to plan. Jordan said that once inside, things went wrong fast. Mark woke up. There was yelling, a struggle. In a panic, Jordan fired a single shot. Mark collapsed instantly. Jordan ran. He took the watch on his way out, thinking maybe he'd get something out of it since the payment from Emily was still pending. Emily didn't call 911 immediately. Jordan said she waited, made sure everything looked believable. She gave herself a few bruises, scratched her own cheek with her fingernail, then went to her children and called for help. Everything had been orchestrated. Everything. Except the reality of what had happened. With Jordan's confession, the entire narrative flipped. Emily Carson, once a symbol of maternal strength, was now the center of a murder investigation. She was arrested a week later at her sister's house, where she'd been staying with her children. The news stunned the community. Crowds that once stood with candles now stood in silence, unsure what to believe. During her interrogation, Emily denied everything. She claimed Jordan was lying, that he broke in on his own. She had no idea who he was, her lawyers argued. That Jordan, with a criminal history and a need to deflect blame, had found the perfect scapegoat in a grieving widow. But the evidence was piling up. Jordan's phone contained deleted messages that had been partially recovered. One of them read, "Remember, no one gets hurt. Just scare him and leave." It was sent days before the murder. The number it came from was a burner phone, later traced back to a gas station where security footage showed Emily purchasing. She was wearing a baseball cap, but her face was visible. Investigators also discovered that Emily had searched for life insurance, payout timeline after spouse death, and how to fake a robbery in the weeks before the murder. That, combined with Jordan's testimony, painted a damning picture. Emily was charged with second-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and obstruction of justice. In court, the defense tried to shift the narrative. They argued that Emily was a battered wife who saw no other way out, that she was pushed to the edge by years of abuse, financial stress, and emotional trauma. They claimed she only wanted to scare Mark, not kill him, that the plan was poorly thought out and spiraled beyond her control. The prosecution disagreed. They said she was cold and calculating. She planned a fake invasion to make herself look innocent while cashing in on Mark's death. They reminded the jury that she didn't call for help right away, that she staged her injuries, that she had every reason, money, fear, desperation, to go through with it. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict guilty. Emily Carson was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Jordan Tate received 25 years, with eligibility for parole in 18. The Carson children were placed in the care of relatives. The house was sold. The headlines disappeared as newer stories took their place, but the haunting image remained. A mother, holding her children, crying in the night, the perfect victim, until the truth emerged.